Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. You can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, a review would be nice or a comment. And if you're listening to the podcast, well, a review would be great as well. Today, my guest is Ram Prasad. He's an engineer whose company, Delence, provides fractional CTOs to startups, small and medium businesses, and nonprofits. So how do you get into that line of work? Let's figure it out. Welcome to Teach the Key interviews, Bram.
Well, thank you, Neil. I appreciate that introduction. I got into this business in 2016. Prior to that, I had a career as a software engineer, a software manager. I progressed through my career for 20 plus years. In around 2016, I got a call from a CEO who wanted some assistance in CTO type of activities. I was a VP of engineering and CTO for prior companies, and he wanted some technical strategy guidance. He wanted to recruit me into his organization, but at that point in time, I was not ready to change my career, my job. So he wanted me to participate part-time. So I helped him while working full-time. I helped him with his organizing his product, his team, but then one thing led to the other, and it became a full-time venture that I'm now involved in. So that's how I got started. It grew organically. It grew with references from one customer to the other. But yeah, that's how it's concerned.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. But let's take it right back to the beginning, Ram, before all of that. I'm really interested in even you becoming an engineer. You know, a lot of the people that I've had on the podcast, they started off somewhere. I mean, well, everyone has to start off someplace, and I'm always curious as to why they started off where they started off. So, from the bit of research I did on you, I saw that you studied electronics engineering. So, what was the motivation to study that?
So I grew up in India, and the Indian culture at that time and even now, to a good extent, you have to be an engineer or a doctor. Your parents want you to be an engineer or a doctor. I hated biology. I hated medicine. I didn't. That was not me. That was not me. I didn't like blood, and I didn't like to deal with patients and do all of that good stuff. So that left me a career in engineering. So that's how I got started. I went to college for engineering. Now, fortunately, I loved it. I loved it. I did it because that's what the society expects, and you really that's how I got started. But I enjoyed engineering. I love the mathematical aspects to it. I love the technical aspects of it. I really enjoyed studying that. And so I went on to I did my undergraduate degree back home in India, but then I came here to the University of Houston and did my master's in electrical engineering to continue my passion in engineering. So I love that. So that's how I got started. I did a lot of undergraduate. I mean, a lot of people, a lot of my student, other friends, I could tell that they did it because they were doing it. They wanted to pass an exam, but a few of us, we had a passion for it. So I was fortunate. I was fortunate. It's not something I dreamt about growing up, but it was definitely something I enjoyed once I got into it.
That's something we have in common, Ram. I actually studied engineering because my father said I should. So it wasn't a country that expected it of me as my father. Ironically enough, he wasn't even an engineer himself. But yeah, he said do engineering, and I after high school I didn't really have any plans, so engineering it was. And luckily, and also like you, it worked out okay because once I finished the degree and I did a master's as well, I started working in medical devices, and it actually worked out really nicely. So thank you, Dad, I guess.
Thank you. And we have one more thing in common. I started my career in medical devices.
Oh, okay, nice. All right. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
wonderful. So I'm actually, well, you mentioned Delence, but all the roles that you had before you started your own firm, your own company, how did those roles prepare you to become the CEO or the founder of Delence?
So growing up, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I mean, so that was set. I had an uncle who had a pharmaceutical company back home in India, and I aspired to be having a successful business just like him. So that was always in my DNA, my blood, my desire. So my career through my career, I was always thinking about product ideas, how I could build it, and I actually had another startup in 2008 timeframe, which I sold the technology for. So I built a platform for systems monitoring, and I in 2000 time frame I sold the technology for that to a larger company. So I did that, but even prior to that, I was always looking for ideas to explore, to build a business of my own. So I tried several businesses. So it was part and parcel of what I tried. And this particular business of mine is an extension of my experience. It leverages my experience as a technology leader and takes full advantage of that. And offering instead of being tied to one employer, I'm now serving multiple clients, doing literally what I have learned over the course of my career. So I was a software engineer, software manager. I have had leadership roles in all kinds of technology companies, all kinds of sizes. And so that it was actually, it was just a natural progression, and it led me to where I am today.
Okay. This is probably a question I should have asked earlier, but now I guess it's better late than never. We're still talking. So, you did your first degree in India, and then you mentioned you came to the US to do your master's. I guess what was the motivation to come and do a master's in the US as opposed to doing one in India? And then also, what differences did you notice in living in India as opposed to being in the US?
Well, the Western, so first of all, a master's degree at that time, I'm talking about mid 90s, at that early to mid 90s, the master's degree in India in engineering was not, would not lead to a different outcome than when I did my bachelor's, meaning the kind of job opportunities that I would get at that time did not the master's degree did not have for any value at that time. Now it's different now. The state of the industry is different. The markets are different, but at that time. So that's number one. Number two, the other thing that a lot of my couple of other friends had done at that time, they had gone to the US, they had gone on to study. So it kind of attracted me to that. So it was something I was looking forward to. The difference is in India, it is at that time it was more structured, meaning I had to choose. There was no choice in the type of, if I had a degree in electronics engineering, there was predefined set of courses I had to take. There was no flexibility in changing. In the US, there's a lot of flexibility. That's one thing that came to my. I could choose within electrical engineering. I could specialize. I could choose different kind of specializations. I could choose different professors I wanted to take a course, and I could change my major if I wanted to. It was easy. It's much so that it was more rigid. So you had to start. You had to finish to a good extent. You had to finish whether you liked it or not. You had to finish it. This country gives you an opportunity to learn and grow and do what you like. That's one difference I noticed as soon as I came in, and that's a good thing because it allowed me to choose the areas I wanted for a specialization.
All right. I mean, you also mentioned that based on your career, you had various roles before starting Delence, and you even had some leadership roles. What was the preparation that you did to get ready to be a leader as opposed to an individual contributor?
It starts off with what you're good at. It starts off with so you do the best you can as an engineer. You grow, you learn from what you are good at. So while I was a good engineer, I found that I was better at uh, uh, taking initiative to. I was better at inspiring. I was better at coordinating. I was better in getting the job done through not just my efforts. So it's something I learned while being a good software engineer, and so that's where my inclinations move towards. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times when people make that move from individual contributor to leader, I'm not sure they take all into account the various or the different skills that you need to have in being a leader as opposed to being an individual contributor. Because when you're an individual contributor, your work is you're judged based on your work, as opposed to when you're a leader, you've been judged based on the productivity of the people that are reporting to you. And just being a great individual contributor doesn't make you a great leader. And I think a lot of people come across that and they struggle because they didn't think about that change in the skills that they need to have making that
Yeah.
transition.
And I have had several of my colleagues been in that scenario. They aspired to be a leader because they felt that was the thing to do. But then once they got into the role, they just wanted to go back. And the good thing is, in the workplace today, that opportunity, as long as you're in the right organization or the right team. I've had several folks who just said, okay, I'm done with this. I want to be an individual contributor. So that's not me, but that's because not my personality. But yes, and that's perfectly okay. It's perfectly okay. I have tried to create in my past career a career trajectory which allows for individual contributors to also grow within the organization in terms of roles and compensation and things of that nature. I in a couple of organizations, I've actually initiated that effort because that is a perfectly acceptable and necessary career trajectory.
Yep, I'm 100%. So with your company, you help other companies with providing fractional CTOs. So what exactly is a fractional CTO? What do they do?
A fractional CTO is it's exactly that. It's fractional, meaning you're not employed, you're not engaged full time. So my client companies have the same challenges that any company has in that they need a technology leadership, but there is a vacuum in technology leadership because either number one, they're not in a position to hire one right now, do not need one now, not able to find the right one, any combination of the above. Then they can engage us, 10 to 15 to 20 hours a week, as an example, and provide. Now we come in with diverse experience, extensive experience. So with that input of time, we can jumpstart their product development, they deliver their products on time, help them build a technology or product strategy. But it's the same role as a full-time CTO, except that it's done on a fractional basis because that's what the client is the best decision for that particular client at this point in time.
Okay. So I'm curious about the fractional CTO concept. So this is a person who is not brought in as a full-time employee, but I'm assuming that the people reporting to this person could very well be full-time employees. So are there any issues that ever arise when you have full-time people reporting to somebody who's not a full-time person themselves? And if so, what are they?
The first thing is you have to impart confidence, that you have to impart trust and confidence that as soon as you come in. And I do this all the time on all my clients. There's a full-time employee reporting into me. Now I don't handle their HR functions and things of that sort because I'm not a full-time employee. So I'm only dealing with their in all cases that I'm working with, their ability to deliver the product or technology. So I get this question frequently, but quite frankly, that is not a major challenge. That is not a major challenge because I have the depth of experience. I've led large teams in my career before. So I come in and as long as you can gain the respect of the organization. Now, the bigger challenge is some of these technology strategies require buy-in from other peer executives. As a full-time employee, you have the bandwidth and time to gain that acceptance, because I can't just come up with a technology solution in isolation and say, this is what we're going to build. It has to cater to the other stakeholders in the organization. So while I have not had, I don't see managing a team that, and nobody has raised that issue with me so far in the 7 years I've been doing business. Maybe that is of significant mention. But you need to establish trust with your peer organization very rapidly. So I do, even though it's a focused effort, because you have to gain the trust immediately of your primary client. My primary client is the CEO of the company. So I have to gain his trust, his or her trust. But right behind that, I have to understand the organizational structure. So I learned that over time. I've learned that over time. You learn it, that you have to gain the trust of your peers. It's not just the CEO who's your customer, but the VP of marketing, the head of sales, the head of operations. They're also your clients. They're also your client. So what I normally do is, within the first week, I set up meetings with all of those individuals, understand their problem, because they have touch. Everybody has touch points with technology today. Everybody. And so I try to understand their pain points and try to create a story which might be different from the story that I got from the CEO, which is his vision. So now I have to balance the CEO's vision with the stakeholders' current requirements and create a plan based on that. So I've learned that you need to speak to everybody in the organization. And then also within the team, I say I've not had a challenge, but I might have inherently developed a process for that. So I meet with the team leads, the individual contributors. So I probably do that as second nature because I'm managing the team. And so while I might be saying that there's no challenge there, I might have, now that you asked me this question, I might have built a process, and that's taken care of as part of my process. Because and that's probably why it is mitigated and it's not an issue. But the stakeholder is something that I learned along the way. I mean, though I knew that theoretically, in practice, because you get, when you meet with the CEO, you get some specific direction, and then you go with it. But that's not enough. That's not enough.
Got it. Ram, when I first started this podcast, this YouTube channel, it was all about the public speaking journeys of those with technical backgrounds. And it still is for the most part. And it started with my own struggles giving presentations in front of management when I worked in medical devices as an engineer. So when it comes to your own public speaking journey, is giving presentations in front of others or public speaking generally something you've always been good at? And if not, what did you do to get better at it?
No, so I would prefer any day my inherent personality to just use words in a document and send it over. That's my inherent nature. That's what I would love to do, and everybody should understand it. But that's not how it works. That's not definitely, and that's not enough. So, and the other thing, so what I learned though is, especially talking about Teach the Geeks, most geeks have some sort of interest or passion in their work. So in my case, I love building products. I love scaling the products. So there is inherent interest and passion around it. And so you don't have to, you just have to be yourself. Because it's not enough to create an email, a Word document, and to communicate your ideas. You have to share the idea in a forum of other leaders. You have to share one-on-one. And so you have to speak. So especially on one-on-ones, it's easy because the conversation flows naturally. But in a forum where the heads of the different marketing, sales, operations, we all meet, you have to communicate. You have to sell your idea. You have to sell your idea. The inputs you got from the CEO and the other leaders in the organization, you have got all that input now, and based on that input, you have a theory on what you have an idea on what should be built, on when it should be built, what it will cost. So just go naturally. It doesn't have to be formal. It doesn't have to be formal. When you go informally, when I say informally, it doesn't mean just casually, but in a way that you don't read your slides, as an example. The slides is just a point. Your slides should be very small, short. It just should be headlines. so that you're not putting content in the slides that you have to read or make people read. So, but you talk with passion, you speak naturally, and that's and you use storytelling. So yeah, I love giving examples. I love giving examples. So I give a lot of, because I love cars. So I give examples of cars. Recently, someone told me they needed um, they need to expand they need to expand some legacy, they needed some legacy platform. So I told him that you're asking me to build, I am building a garage for electric cars, but you're asking me to build a garage to host your horses, where the horses are not designed for modern day roads. I need to build a gap such that the horses can get exposed to the outside air to breathe. I need to deliver food to the horses. So you're asking me to do all of that, whereas the vision is to build a garage for the electric car. So that's just an example of a story, but you give some analogies and a story to explain your point of view, and I learned it that way. I do that frequently.
Wonderful. Do you ever get nervous before giving a presentation, Ram? And if so, how do you deal with your nerves?
Yeah, I do get no. It's just there's a sense of, okay, I have to make this presentation, but yeah, and there's no, I just do it. It's time to do it. There's nothing I prepare. I do take I have the squeezy that I press. I have the squeezy that I press, so I keep that handy. But that's I do that sometimes before. I've noticed I'm doing it less frequently nowadays, but yeah, I used to do that a lot before any presentations I had to make.
Well, that's something we also have in common, Ram. I also have mine. I have a
All
few of them.
right.
I have a few of them actually.
Oh, okay.
That's just one of them. But yeah, I especially well, certainly when you do virtual presentations, it can be fine because no one sees them. You're doing it, but if you're in front of people and live and in living color, then maybe not having not having the squeezy thing would be more appropriate. So for the
Yeah.
people who are listening or watching this conversation, Ram, if you were to provide them with one tip in getting better or more effective at giving presentations, what would it be?
It would engage with storytelling. Figure out to explain. That's what I would give. That would be the tip. So don't go overly complex in technical details, depending on the audience, but tell a story, just like how you engaged me with a story, how I got started. So think about someone asking you a question, how you got started, how the idea came, what the value of this idea will be. Don't go into necessarily the details of the idea itself, how the idea is better than the other idea out there. But why you started this idea, what prompted you to sell the idea, what the value is, how the so yeah, and try to create. So engage in storytelling is one tip I would say.
Wonderful. Well, this has been a great conversation, Ram. Thank you so much for being a guest. How can people get in touch with you?
I'm very active on LinkedIn. I host podcasts every Thursday where I invite product and technology leaders. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can search for me, Ram Prasad Delence on LinkedIn, and send me a message. You can also, yeah, so that's the best way to get hold of me.
Wonderful. Well, everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek, working with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Ram.
Thank you, Neil. Have a great day.